Hello everyone. This video is on the chapter A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. I will be talking about the chapter in details with focus on explanation of important phrases and sentences along with the emphasis on pronunciation. Before we start reading the chapter, here is a brief introduction for you. The story A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes revolves around the idea of having unquestionable belief in something. The story is set in Latin American country. Lencho, the farmer, who is the protagonist of the story, he writes a letter to God seeking help from the Almighty after discovering his entire crop yield destroyed by a devastating hailstorm. Although his wishes get fulfilled partially, if not completely, he is ungrateful in the end and questions the honesty and modesty of the postmasters who actually helped him with money anonymously in the name of God. So let's start reading. The house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. Crest is the top of a hill. From its height, one could see the river and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers. Dotted with the flowers means around the field there were flowers that always promised a good harvest. The only thing the earth needed was a downpour. Downpour means heavy rain, or at least a shower. Throughout the morning, Lencho is the protagonist. He is the main character of the story here. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, knowing the fields intimately means he knew his fields really well. He knew a lot about his crops and everything related to farming. So he had done nothing else but see the sky towards the northeast. And why was he seeing the sky? Because he was waiting for rain. As we all know that when it rains well, there is good harvest. Now we are really going to get some water, woman. Woman, here he is talking to his wife. The woman who was preparing supper, night meal, dinner. So the woman who was preparing supper replied, "Yes, God willing." The older boys were working in the field, with the smaller ones were playing near the house until the woman called them all. "Come for dinner." It was during the meal that, just as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. In the northeast, huge mountains of clouds could be seen approaching. The air was fresh and sweet. The man went out for no other reason than to have the pleasure of feeling the rain on his body. So Lencho goes out just to feel the rain on his body, and all of us like to do that. And when he returned, he exclaimed, "These aren't raindrops falling from the sky, they are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are fives." Lencho calls the raindrops coins. Why? Because they would bring him money. Because when it will rain good, he will have a good harvest, he will have a good crop, which he will sell in the market and get money. And this is the reason he calls those raindrops as new coins. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers, draped in a curtain of rain. But suddenly, a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. Hailstones are ice, big ice pieces. Hailstones. They began to fall. These truly did resemble new silver coins. the boys exposing themselves to the rain. So here, boys exposing themselves to the rain means the boys also went out in the rain. They ran out to collect the frozen pearls. So what are these frozen pearls? The hailstones. Hailstones are the frozen pearls. So here the author has called hailstones as frozen pearls. "It's really getting bad now," exclaimed the man. "I hope it passes quickly." It did not pass quickly. For an hour, the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. The field was white as if covered with salt. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. When the storm passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts." What are locusts? Locusts are insects which fly in big groups and they destroy the crops. "A plague of locusts would have left more than this. The hail has left nothing." The meaning of "a plague of locusts would have left more than this" means that the hail did more damage to the crops more than what locusts would have done. "This year we will have no corn." That night was a sorrowful one. "All our work for nothing. There is no one who can help us. We'll all go hungry this year." So what did Lencho hope for? Lencho was hoping for some rain. Why did Lencho say the raindrops were like new coins? Because raindrops or rainfall would bring good harvest, which he would sell in the market and get a lot of money. How did the rain change? The rain changed into hailstorm. And what happened to Lencho's fields? Lencho's fields were destroyed. What were Lencho's feelings when the hail stopped? He was very, very sad because his entire field was destroyed, meaning his crops were destroyed, and he would earn no money that year. But in the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. So this chapter is all about Lencho's faith in God, and he believed that God was the only one who would help him in that time of great misery and loss. Don't be so upset, even though this seems like a total loss. Remember, no one dies of hunger. That's what they say. No one dies of hunger. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope: the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. So he had grown up with this concept of God being omnipresent, being everywhere, and God helping all those who are in need. And God never says no to anybody. Lencho was an ox of a man. What is the meaning of this? Lencho was an ox of a man. Here, the author has compared Lencho to an ox. And why does he compare Lencho to an ox? Because he was a very, very hard working person. He put in a lot of physical labor in his fields. So physically, he was very, very hard working. And that is why here the author has compared Lencho to an ox and calls him an ox of a man, working like an animal in the fields. But still, he knew how to write. Still, he knew how to write means, because usually people who are working in the fields or the labor class who put in physical labor, usually they are illiterate. But here the author wants to tell us that Lencho knew a little bit of reading and writing. The following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. So he actually writes a letter to God. This is how profound, how immense, how great his faith in God was. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes, because the hailstorm. And then he finishes his letter. Pesos is the currency of several Latin American countries. The backdrop of the story is Latin American. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled went to town. He was troubled, he was upset. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. One of the employees, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss, laughing heartily, and showed him the letter to God. Never in his career as a postman had he known that address, because he had never seen anybody writing a letter to God. And here he saw an actual letter actually posted to God. Here the postmaster, he was a fat, amiable, a friendly person. So he was a fat, amiable fellow, also broke out laughing. So they all laughed like any ordinary person would find it funny that someone has actually posted a letter to God. But almost immediately he turned serious and, tapping the letter on his desk, commented, "What faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter," starting up a correspondence with God. So initially, the postmaster broke out laughing, but immediately he became serious and wished that he had the same kind of faith, the person writing the letter, that is Lencho, the same kind of faith Lencho had in God. The postmaster also wished that he had the same kind of faith in God. So, in order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea. So, in order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster does not want Lencho's faith to shake in God, so he came up with an idea. Answer the letter. So the idea was that he wanted to answer the letter, so he opened the letter. But when he opened it, it was evident that to answer it, he needed something more than goodwill. It means that it was not just he needed some good words to reply to that person, but he needed something more than goodwill, ink and paper. But he stuck to his resolution. But he did not change his mind. Like, he must have thought initially that he would just reply to the letter so that the person's faith, the writer's faith in God, does not shake. So, but when he opened the letter, what did he read in that? He read that the person who had written the letter wanted some money. But the postmaster decided that he will still reply to the letter so that Lencho's faith in God does not break. But he stuck to his resolution. And what did he do to get the money? He asked the money from his employees, and he himself gave a part of his salary, and several friends of his were obliged to give something for an act of charity. So how did he collect the money? Number one is he asked money from his employees. Then he himself gave a part of his salary, and some of his friends were also ready to give some money as an act of charity. It was impossible for him to gather together the 100 pesos, but he could not collect the entire amount that Lencho had asked for. So he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. It means he was able to send something more than 50. He put the money in an envelope addressed to Lencho, and with it a letter containing only a single word as signature, God. So he collected money, put it in the envelope, addressed it to Lencho, but he did not write his name. He signed the letter as God because he wanted Lencho to believe that the money came from God, because he didn't want Lencho's faith in God to shake. Who or what did Lencho have faith in? Lencho had faith in God. What did he do? He wrote a letter to God asking for money. Who read the letter? The postmaster. And what did the postmaster do? He collected the money and sent it to Lencho. The following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual to ask if there was a letter for him. It was the postman himself who handed the letter to him, while the postmaster, experiencing the contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked on from his office. Lencho showed not the slightest surprise on seeing the money. What does this statement show? This statement shows that Lencho was not at all surprised on seeing the money, because he had such immense faith in God that he very readily believed that money was sent to him by God. So Lencho showed not the slightest surprise on seeing the money. Such was his confidence. Confidence in whom? Confidence in God. But he became angry when he counted the money. God could not have made a mistake, nor could he have denied Lencho what he had requested. So when he counted the money, what did he find? He found that the money was less. But his faith in God was so immense that he was not ready to believe that God could have made a mistake, or God could have sent him lesser than what he had asked for. Immediately, Lencho went up to the window to ask for paper and ink. On the public writing table, he started to write with much wrinkling of his brow. Wrinkling of his brow means he was really angry. With much wrinkling of his brow caused by the effort he had to make to express his ideas. When he finished, he went to the window to buy a stamp, which he licked and then affixed to the envelope with a blow of his fist. The moment the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it and see what the letter said. It said, God, of the money that I had asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Send me the rest, since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Lencho. So he wrote a letter of complaint to God, telling God that he received lesser amount of money, that instead of 100 pesos, he received 70 pesos. And then he also requested God not to send him money through mail, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Why does he call them a bunch of crooks? Because he believed that God must have sent him the entire amount, that is 100 pesos, that he had asked for. But it was the post office employees who must have stolen some amount of money. And that is why he calls them a bunch of crooks and writes to God requesting him not to send money through mail. So was Lencher surprised? No, he was not surprised. What made him angry? Seeing lesser amount of money made him angry. We will discuss the question answers in the next segment. Some words whose pronunciation you must practice. Predicted, predicted. Hailstones, locusts, locusts. Solitary, solitary. Conscience, conscience. Employees, employees. Heartily, heartily. Amiable, amiable. Pesos, pesos. Now these are some of the words whose pronunciation you must practice. Hoping that you liked the video. Meet you with my next video. Till then, keep watching, keep learning. Thank you.